I am Dr. Kate Helsen. So we need to remember with all of this codicological stuff and all of this paleographical stuff and all of this musicology that what we're actually looking at is a musical score. This isn't something that someone made to be a work of visual art predominantly, even though now it's treated kind of that way. We find them, in frames and on people's walls and things because they are obviously visually beautiful. But what we're looking at is a score, a musical score, and because I'm also a singer, sometimes when I think about this, I feel like it's maybe been a little bit surrounded or buried by how neat a thing it is for us to have the physical object, and we forget about what it must have sounded like to actually to sing from it and to use it as a tool for singing. Now, what most people will do is they will take images from this, or they will, if they're lucky enough, they have the book in front of them, and they'll take transcription. And so they will turn the notes that you see here and the pitches and the quadratic notation and all of that into something that then we as modern musicians are more used to seeing. The interesting thing comes when you learn the way this notation works and then sing it this way. You will get different phrasings and shapings. The notes will belong to each other in different ways. Some will stand out and some will kind of flow together. And that's inherent in the visual way that the music is actually written down in this time period. And that's why I think, especially in the church, manuscripts kept being made. Like, this book could have been a book that was printed, but the choice was made in this monastery and in many to keep the manuscript tradition alive because it gave you more options in terms of musical gesture and flexibility and shaping, phrasing that you wouldn't get in the kinds of notations that were coming out in the print world, which were pretty basic. If you think about Renaissance notation, maybe part books, if you've seen anything of the English prints of Tallis and Bird, for example, there aren't bar lines, there aren't slurs or phrasing units, nothing like that. So to get at the way this music would have been shaped and phrased and understood as music, it is a really good exercise to sing from it. So I'm going to do that in a second, and I'm going to get my friend and head music librarian, Brian McMillan, to sing with me. We're going to do a part of this book that has carried over into the modern tradition, or the traditional modern tradition. You can still hear what we're going to sing in churches, usually in an English translation or whatever the vernacular is. And they're called the Reproaches, and they are sung on Good Friday. And they are a kind of a mini drama. They're imagining the voice of Christ asking the people, "What have I done to you that you would crucify me?" And it goes through all of these things. I was with you in the desert in Egypt. I was the here there. But what have I done to you? So it's a kind of a meditative chant that has these two sides to it, a kind of a back and forth. So we'll do that for you in a minute. I wanted to lead you through a little bit of how we interpret these notation, this notation shape, and how it, some of the words that are associated with the way these things are sung. So the first thing you need to know is that you can always tell what the actual pitches are in this notation because they will give you a clef. And in this book, it's always either an F clef or a C clef. Here we have an F clef, and you're just going to have to take it on faith that this is supposed to look like an F. In earlier days, it looked a little more like an F. It's been stylized so that these two diamonds here are supposed to be the two kind of prongs of the F, and this is supposed to be the back or the body of a capital F. And the F, that's a line then that runs through that represents F. So if you're used to reading the treble clef, where F is a space, you have to just adjust your brain a little bit. But if you're used to reading one of the other clefs, for example, a bass clef, then F is a line. So it's not that hard a challenge. The other clef that you will find is a C clef. down the side here, so these two kind of rhombus-shaped looking squares here with this little tiny thin connecting line here, that's supposed to be a capital C. And they go all the way down, you can see them running down, and between them, that red line, that's the pitch C. The important thing about F and C, of course, is that they are the only two pitches when there are no accidentals involved that tell you where the semitone falls. Which is right underneath them, both. And in the very, very early days of the clef, F and C were the ones that were written out so everyone knew where to put the semitone if they were just reading straight off of the page. Now let's go back to here. So this is something that we will be singing for you. There are the reproaches. And so we will start with the popule meus, which is how the reproaches start. And here you can see P, the big P, popule meus. So you're reading the Latin underneath, and then first of all, you're having to always vertically align how many syllables to what pitch above it. Usually this is pretty obvious. Sometimes there's a little bit of guesswork involved, but you can usually tell if you take a very close look at what the notator has done. Remember that the process was that the text would go in first, and then the notator would write over top of that text. And we know that from the times that it didn't work out and the notes had to go sort of really close together or up the margin or something like that because there'd been a mistake. So usually the text person is thinking about how much the singer is going to have to sing on one syllable and leaving space for that to be completed. So here, for example, we see some of these pitches that are kind of almost glued together and others of them that are separate. The separate ones always indicate one syllable by itself, and then those that are touching almost. So you can see that there is a little tiny connecting line between this square note and that square note, for example, and then a little line coming down this way, and that is called a pace. Or podatus is another word for it in Latin, and it just means one pitch and then a higher pitch, a sort of a swoop up, but they are now rendered in square notation with a little line connecting them. Here's one where the line isn't necessary because we're just going up one pitch from a space, so in this case an E, to an F. And the square note is over that F line, and so you can see that they're just touching a little bit, but that's still the way they would be rendered. Now, there's another, I'm trying to find, here's a good example of this. So sometimes over one syllable, so this is the syllables Jesus, you'll have ye, that's the first note on a D there, because here we have our F clef, so I know that one line below it is D. And then Zeus, it starts with that square note, and then it jumps up to a G, and then we have this long kind of sideways rectangle that comes down. The way you have to read that, regardless of how many pitches are inside of that, if it goes from the very top to the very bottom of the staff, it doesn't matter. The only two pitches that you are going to sing is the pitch that it starts on and the pitch that it ends on. In this case, it only goes down one pitch, so we go from G to F, so we just have we know Jesus, that's all we got. But in a case where there would be more of a slide, let's see if I'm lucky here, find anything. Maybe I'm not going to find anything. That's okay. No, that slide only goes over 2 pitches as well. This one goes over 3 pitches. So we start and we have the D above C here, and we go all the way to the B, but we wouldn't sing that C. So we'd just have la, da, in there. So we wouldn't go la, or anything like that. Even though it looks like it looks tempting. The other thing that you need to know is that sometimes the notes are square and they are at right angles to each other, and then other times they've got this kind of rhombus look, this kind of diamondy shape. And when they go down like this in a row, we call that currentes. Currentes from the Latin to flow or to run, like a current in English. And so the idea is that you would start on the first of these pitches, which would be the high point of that run, and then you just kind of let your voice flow over the other pitches. Again, we don't think it's about slurring them necessarily, but it might be a slight pickup in pace, and it's a kind of a letting go at the end of the phrase. Sanctus et immortalis popule meus quid feci tibi aut in contrista vitae responde mihi quia Sanctus Deus agios ischios Sanctus fortis agios athanatos eleison imas Sanctus et immortalis miserere nobis quia edo existe per desertum quadragint annis et mana cibe vitae et introdu existe in terram satis optima agios oteos Sanctus Deus agios ischios Sanctus
Deus, Sanctus Deus, Agios ischiros, Sanctus fortis, Agios athanatos, eleison imhas, Sanctus et immortalis miserere nobis. Ego ante te aperui mare, et tu aperuisti lancea latus meum. Ego ante te prei in columna nubis, et tu me duxisti ad praetorium Pilati. Ego te pavimana per desertum, et tu me cecidisti a lapis et flagellis. Eduxitor minus populum suum, in exultatione. Alleluia. Et electos suos illedis ia. Alleluia.